So I'm sitting in the studio this morning with Mona Davis. Thank you for joining us. You're running for Kirksville School Board.
That's correct.
So first of all, just tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I grew up in Audrain County, a small town, Vandalia, and I first went to Kirksville as a college student where I met my husband, and we traveled around a little bit around Northeast Missouri. I worked as a tutor for high school dropouts, working toward their GED, and then I worked as a home-based Head Start teacher. We decided to go back to Kirksville to raise our family, so I began working at Truman State University, where I've been for the last 30 years, assisting the dean. We train teachers to teach.
Why the decision now to run for school board?
Well, we raised two daughters. We had them in the Kirksville Public Schools for 16 years. And as a home-based Head Start teacher, I taught my parents that the parents were the first and most important teachers. And when our daughters started school, I formed such a deep respect for their classroom teachers and the partnership that we shared in our daughters' education. And I realized there wasn't enough money in the world to repay those teachers for what they were doing. And as a working mom, I kind of had a limited budget, so I couldn't financially thank the teachers. I volunteered in the classroom as much as I could. But now that our daughters are grown, I feel like I have the time to give back to the schools. I'm proud of our Kirksville schools, and I would really like to give them my service.
You're running at a time when school districts across the state are facing a lot of tough issues, though, with achievement being down, with budgets. What do you see just as the biggest issue facing Kirksville schools?
The issues facing Kirksville schools are the issues facing schools across the nation. And like you say, tough financial times, standardized testing, the big push for student achievement, no child left behind. I face those issues, I guess, the same way I face them in my personal life. You know, it's kind of tough at home, too. And we just have to be good stewards, and we have to think about what we're doing and how it affects others. And some of those expenses that schools are facing, we need to look at them as investments. The bottom line, we always have to think about the kids and their education and preparing them for the future.
There was a recent, I think it was ACT from 2008. The results showed that just statewide, we were just lagging behind so much in math and science. So what do you see as your role in fixing that?
Well, my role is not to fix. I'm not an employee of the school district. My role is to support. Certainly, like I said, student achievement is number one. We have to hire good people, make sure that the school board hires good people, a good superintendent, and then we have to empower them. We have to leave them alone and not micromanage. We need to give them the tools they need. We need to depend on them to tell us what we need and just do our best every day. Not so much focus on results, but just focus on every day doing the right thing, and I think then the results will naturally come.
That seems like you're talking about standardized testing.
I'm trying not to.
No. I'd like to get your thoughts on it, though.
Well, you know, a good teacher can do everything right. I kind of think of a good teacher, I grew up on a farm. A good farmer can do everything right, and then he faces a season of drought or a season of excessive rain, and his crops fail. Does that make him a bad farmer? Does that make his crops a bad student? We do what we do, and you know, kids kind of do what they do. And again, it's just slow and steady and every day doing the right thing. Standardized tests, a double-edged sword. I feel like we have to have some standard. We have to have something to shoot for.
Yeah, I think that was last week it came out. We heard so much of how many students are having to take remedial courses. So I guess how do you better prepare Kirksville students, or how do you empower teachers in a way where they can better prepare students to go to college?
Well, that's our goal. Of course, not everyone is college bound. We have to have rigorous academics, and we have to prepare our students for college, but also we have to bear in mind that we're preparing some of them for the workforce. I think we need to form strong ties with the universities that we're sending our students to, but also our community that we're sending maybe some of our students out into to work. We have to remember each and every child. We don't have a single the single purpose, the education of the children, but we're not educating every child for the same future. But we need to remember that we are educating every child for what we hope is a satisfying place in society for them.
Right, yeah. One thing I did want to ask just a little more on is just the budget, because it does seem like that's something we're not going to be able to get away from any time in the future here. So, faced with tough choices, what do you see looking at the Kirksville district, areas that need to be expanded, areas that maybe could face some cuts if you're forced to make those tough decisions?
That is a tough question, a very tough question. What do we prioritize? Kirksville's fortunate that we've had several bond issues locally, and our physical plan is in good shape. We have a new addition to our early childhood center. The early childhood center as a whole is a fairly new building. Our technical building is undergoing some renovations. We have a new science portion of our high school. So our facilities are in pretty good shape. But when you look, certainly academics is why we're there, but I don't think that athletics should be a target, because maybe athletics is the reason that one of those kids is in school. Maybe that's the reason he gets up every morning and comes. So yeah, it's tough. Certainly, this is my first time to be a candidate for school board. I feel like I'll learn a lot that first year and depend on the team. But I think we have to be fairly certain that there are cuts in our future. And those are some tough decisions, but I'm willing to sit down and discuss those, but not leave any child out, because there's a lot of reasons they are coming to school every day.
Yeah, I mean, here in Columbia, we're seeing all sorts of cuts where it's getting to the point now where students are very much aware that cuts are being made. So how do you avoid that, I guess, where it doesn't really trickle down and affect the student as much, or is that inevitable?
Well, I think it's inevitable, and I think it's a life lesson, maybe learned early, maybe good will come out of that. Hopefully parents will step up, our community will step up to fill in those gaps. If we work cooperative, maybe for some of those arts programs or even educational programs, maybe we can partner with neighboring school districts. I don't have the answer, and I hope that the voters will be patient with me as I learn those answers, but maybe what's lacking in my head is in my heart, and I'll hope for everyone's child the same thing I hope for my own. They're tough decisions, but they need to be made.
Right. I did want to ask you about arts education too, or arts programs, because it does seem like that's one of the areas that districts hit first. So what's your opinion of that?
Extremely important, and we're fortunate to have a very vibrant arts association. Recently, they decorated the side of their aging building with murals made by our local students, so they want to foster that. Certainly, it's all important.